welcome Dr. Carl B. Mack.
Appreciate you, black man.
No problem.
Thank you, baby.
Good to see you. All right.
Thank you, Chris. As Chris said, we've known each other for close to a decade. I don't think anybody's worthy of quite a introduction like that, so my brother, I'm very humble. But I got to tell you this, as beautiful as you are, our brother is a little disappointed, so I want to know this right now before we get started. Family or not family? Family or not family? Because if I ain't family, I'm going to sit my ass down. Because I got some things to say that, you know, it's going to be a little rocky road for some of us. And given the conditions that's going on in our community, we need to have a rocky road. Now, I want to start with this. One of the things that I understand about organizations and people, you take a person who doesn't believe in themselves and they're consumed with apathy, I can show you a loser in life. And when I first came in this room, one of the first people that you introduced was your illustrious president. And I watched you all give a very half-hearted applause to the highest ranking officer in this organization. Now, if you want the rest of the world to respect IABA, then you got to first start with respecting yourself, and that starts to me with you, Madam President. So we're gonna try this one more time since we family. All right, we're gonna try this one more time. Family, let us welcome to the stage our illustrious president, Madam President Monique Patterson. There you go. There you go. There you go. See, I'm in love now, baby. It's all good now. It's all good. It's all good. Come on, baby. Baby, that. Thank you. No, baby, thank you. Our president, our president. As a matter of fact, IABA, every time our leadership is ever introduced, that is the type of respect that goes with that position. I mean, imagine this, in the halls of Congress, whether you like the president or don't like the president, when the president is introduced, if we want the rest of the world to respect us, we got to respect ourselves. You've never seen the president introduced and the members of Congress sit there with a very apathetic response. Never, ever have you ever seen it, and pray God you never will see it. Now, in that same vein, there was a sister who was very much responsible for helping to plan this thing, and I think she's done an absolutely incredible job. Sister Blackman, where you at? Where's she at? All right, family, one more time. Come on, you know the drill. You know the drill. Thank you, sister. Now, I'm at ease now. I'm not mad no more. I promise you I'm not mad no more. It's going to be all right from here on out. But I do want to say this. I watched Brother Stafford come up, one of our past presidents, Brother Stafford. And I watched Brother Stafford, not knowing the brother. I met him, you know, like everybody else when we came in here. But I had read about Brother Roberts. And I was absolutely humbled by the way that man lived his life, and never, ever could a tribute ever be given to somebody as eloquent as Brother Stafford gave to Brother Roberts. And I almost didn't think that you all were hearing what he did. It was either one or two things. Either you did not hear him or you do not understand the way life was for the first black actuary. Now, it's one of the two. Now, because I understand actuarial science, at least the requirements of it, being an engineer, you some smart folks. So the next time, anytime, you get to sit at the feet of any one of those 65, and I think Sister Shepard's here today. Sister Shepard, Linda, where are you at? One of our, stand baby. That's one of our founder members. Come on. That's right, that's right. Don't shake your head. That's one of the founders, family. That's right, that's right. Now you understand. Now you understand. We all good. You're getting there, family. I swear to God, you're getting there right now. And Linda, don't ever shake your head and say no, baby, because if I'm not mistaken, in 92, in the nation's capital, you were one of the 65 that was there. And if it were not for that group that started off as the National Association of Black Actuaries, that was our foundation, family. And I give thanks to that. I like the change that we made in 94. We went from being a national recognized organization to an international organization. And then it was at that meeting that we elected our very first president, Brother Bernard. And I know that Brother Bernard, President Bernard, is not here, but at the same time, I just want to say thank you for what you did. I also want to thank you for a couple of years ago, you honoring that trailblazer, Brother Roberts. I want to thank you for that, because that tells me that you are able to recognize and appreciate your history. And the great historian has always said that anybody who refuses to acknowledge history is a fool. And we can't do that, family. We can never, ever turn our backs on history. And I've watched, I've read inside your strategic plan when I looked at some of the external forces. One of the external forces is that you have a problem recruiting some members because they got a problem with the name Black. That's right. I'm laughing to stop from crying, because when you understand that, that's right, when you understand that, understand who was standing with Brother Randall. Understand what he fought for. And if he had not fought for us, who would have? If not you, who? I've never known a majority organization that came inside of our community and said, my sole purpose is to help this organization. Just go back and look at sickle cell. Remember when sickle cell was so prevalent in our community? You know why? Oh, it's still prevalent. But you know why it received so much attention? Because there was a lot of money applied to sickle cell. Once the money dried up, the attention dried up. But see, when you look at who you are as a folk, nobody is going to handle our issues like we are. So I read inside that report, your strategic plan, some of us got a problem being Black. I ain't never going to have a problem being Black. I'm never going to have a problem fighting for what I know in my community. Just like when I was as an engineer, I would have people come to me. Well, Brother Mack, your focus for Black children. I would always sit across the table from my sponsors. You heard Chris talk about that $1 million. Let me tell you how that conversation went. First of all, we met in a Black restaurant in Columbus called the Brownstone, because they knew that if you're going to feed me, I want you to take money and patronize Black-owned businesses. Now, as the executive director of that organization, I had at my disposal almost $10 to $15 million. If I didn't have a social consciousness to make sure some of that money went to my community, and then now I want to complain about why my community does not have what it ought to have, well, who's to blame? Look at us inside of New Orleans. I got you, baby. Thank you. I got you. That's what I want. I want some of that. I want that, deaconess. You think about what we got as a responsibility. Here we are sitting in New Orleans in this beautiful edifice. What does the Black folks in New Orleans know about Black actuaries being here? Hardly nothing. So the same thing, all of a sudden 10,000 Black engineers would descend upon a city. All of downtown knew we were there, but what did my community know about it? So I needed to make sure, as my fiduciary responsibility, that I passed some of that money to my community. We needed to make sure that we did that. That is part of the responsibility. That's part of the history that I'm talking about that we got to embrace. That's why I love when Brother Stafford talks so eloquently about Brother Roberts. I can feel him. I can understand that brother being kicked out of meeting, and he's right. We are at war, family. And I'm not talking about some racial war. We at war against folks who don't think like us or look like us. Sometimes we at war with us. We at war with a mindset. You better, as I contemplated this theme tonight, Mission Possible. As I contemplated it, I thought about my ethos. What is my ethos? And as all of us know, ethos is a Greek word. And it's basically saying it is those principles that guide you. It molds your character. What is your personal ethos? So as I thought about what my ethos is, these ideas that shape me, a couple of things came to mind when I saw your theme. One came from that beautiful, heroic brother, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who most of us know as the father of Black history. He's the reason why we celebrated it. And in 1933, he wrote a book called The Miseducation of the Negro. Inside that book is one of my most favorite ethos that I think is apropos for what we need right here, right now. He said this in The Miseducation of the Negro. He said, real education means to inspire people to live more abundantly, to begin with life as they find it, and then make it better. But the instructions thus far given most Negroes in colleges and universities has worked to the contrary. In many cases, it simply increases the number of malcontents who offer no solution to the problems about which they complain. So let us begin with life as we find it, as he's talked about in that ethos. Here is what we have found in our mission. I looked at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It said that in 2012, there was roughly 24,000 or so, 24,300 actuaries in the United States. I looked at your strategic plan, I looked at our strategic plan. I realized that our strategic plan, right? I looked in our plan and saw that at our best, we represent 1% of the 24,300. I'm not an actuary, but I'm an engineer. 1% of 24,300, 243. Now, I don't think that we got 243 members in this organization, but nonetheless, therein lies part of our mission. But then I was impressed, because it's one thing to have an ethos, it's quite another to now have a challenge to that ethos. I saw in the plan that the goal was for this organization, in the legacy of Brother Randall, to go from wherever that number is, less 243, because I don't believe it's 243. Whatever that number is, it is now to go to 1,000. I said, the audacity of these black folks. The audacity to think that they can go from something less than 243 to 1,000. But here was my challenge, family. I didn't see when. We want to go to 1,000. I asked your ED, executive director, say, well, Carl, we still kind of talking about that. I asked Madam President, well, we still kind of talking about that. When, family? Y'all tell me, when do we have to get to 1,000? By what year? See, now I done asked the family, and you're still thinking about it. See, that's a problem. You need pressure. You absolutely need pressure. Because think about what Dr. Woodson said. He said, real education means that you start with life as you find it. Now, this is how we found ourselves. We found ourselves that at best, we represent 1% of the actuarial community. That's what we found. He said that in this ethos, can we now inspire our community to live more abundantly? Therein lies the challenge. But now the other part, he said, and this is what drives me. This is where when the final line is written on Karl Mack, never can anybody who truly knew me say that according to Dr. Woodson, Brother Mack was a malcontent, because he didn't offer no solutions to the problems he complained about. That is what I will not be. Now that is the question that you all got to answer. I ain't got to answer that question, but you got to answer that. No, you right. I'm in this game with you. We got to answer this question. And I ain't down with trying to be a malcontent, family. So we got to come up with a solution for this one. Now, in addition to that ethos, I looked at whether or not I want to be, where is my position in the mission? Here, you got to ask yourself, where is your position within IABA? Because see, when I talk to some of the leadership, they tell me that there's a core group of about 35 to 40, that whenever you need it done, you can call on that 35 to 40. It's more than 35 or 40 of you up in this room. So now I'm going to put the challenge to you. Where is your position in this mission? Well, according to my ethos, I had to go to the Sorbonne. I like saying that, to the Sorbonne, up in Paris, France. I heard President Roosevelt talk. President Roosevelt talked about this thing he called the man in the arena. Let me tell you how that goes. He said something like this. It is not the critic who counts, nor is it the man who talks about how the strong man stumbled, or the doer of deeds could have done those deeds better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust, sweat, and blood, who strives gallantly, who knows great enthusiasm, great devotion. And this brother, if he fails, at his best, he will know in the end high achievement. And at his worst, if he fails, at least he fails daring greatly, so that his place will never be amongst those cold, timid souls who know neither victory or defeat. In layman's terms, he's saying that there are so many of us that can sit on the sidelines so eloquently and talk about, oh, you could have done it like this. You should have done it like that. We don't really give a damn about what you say. You're a critic. You're a critic. I want to know if the rest of you gonna join them other 35 or 40, that's the core group that's in the arena. Because Lord knows our community says that we need more of us in that arena. As I come on with it, as I said, I want you to understand where I was. See, it's one thing for me to talk to you. Quote Carter G. Woodson, quote President Roosevelt. Huh? Does that look like a critic? That brother was in the arena. Yeah, I'm third person now. That brother was in the arena. And I need you to understand something about what you're looking at. Because that wasn't no photo op, family. Wasn't no photo op. You know, some of these leaders want to get arrested and it ain't real. When I got arrested in Seattle, let me tell you the circumstances behind it. We were protesting unlawful law enforcement. For 9 years in a row, an African American was killed by what I call unlawful law enforcement. And I don't want for any stretch of anybody's imagination to think that I don't respect law enforcement, because I do respect the brothers and sisters who have to put their lives on the line to protect our community. I respect that. What I don't respect is them rogue thug cowboys who think because they got that badge that now they can do anything they want to do. And Lord knows there's a very clear history about that. Well, this brother has something to say about that. So when I got arrested, I was an engineer for King County government. I was protesting King County government. I want you to imagine, Allstate Insurance. You're protesting Allstate Insurance, and you work for Allstate Insurance. And people said to me, Carl, how could you bite the hand that feeds you? Because that hand is hurting my community. I remember what Dr. King said, if a man ain't discovered something that he's willing to die for, he ain't fit to live. I wanted to be in the arena, and no amount of nothing was going to buy me off. Oh, they offered me, oh, Brother Mack, why don't you pay a $60 fine, stay out of trouble for 6 months, and this will all go away. When donkeys fly, player. When donkeys fly. As an African-American man, I can simply protest the killing of another black man, and now I got to go before a judge and jury, and the rogue dog who shot him never sees a day in court. No, we're going to put your system to the test. And if that meant that I had to go down with it, a brother was simply down with it. Why? Because I embraced history, and you must do that. Because if you embrace history, what Brother Stafford said to you will resonate inside of you. When you see Sister Linda, you will bow at her feet and hope that she can give you just a few minutes of her time to talk about what it took to form an organization like that. That's when you love and you embrace history. Brother Roosevelt also said that the man who's in the arena, he spends his time for a worthy cause. He also talked about accepting failure. In this effort, one could say that we failed. Because see, the Thomas family never got, the cop who shot him never got charges filed against him. So one could say for all we did, we failed. I have no shame about that. If that was failure, I have no shame about it, family, because as brother President said, a brother failed daring greatly. He said, spend your time so that you can understand the triumphs of high achievement in 1 year. If I was to ask many of you in your communities, what do the NAACP do? Most of you going to say, I don't know what they do. I saw you, sister, looking over. Yeah, what do they do? Most of you going to say that. But in the city of Seattle, when we stepped forward to help lead that organization, the same statement was saying, what does the NAACP do? And in 1 year, out of 1,800 branches, we were #1 out of 1,800. So I understand what it is to achieve high achievement and understand that triumph. I understand that. When I talk about Mission Impossible, and you think about the malcontents, the only people who really believe in an impossible mission are just like Brother Woodson said, they're the malcontents and they're the critics. They're going to believe that. So let me show you this. Let me show you what is possible. When I was with the other organization, as Brother Chris said, we had 12,000 members. We were flat like that for almost a decade. You see that curve when it starts going up? That's what we call the Karl Mack effect. Right? That's what we call that. We call that the Karl Mack effect. Huh? It didn't take long. It didn't take long because we weren't scared, family. I'm saying that you got to be very much visionary. And when you talk about you got passion, I want you to understand how I define passion. You can't have passion for an organization and leave it the same way you found it. Nobody can ever question my passion for that organization. When I talk about an impossible mission, I can remember sitting in front of President Clinton at his global initiative in Chicago. I didn't want to go, especially that $3,500 entry fee certainly made me not want to go. I didn't want to go because of that. But they said, no, Dr. Mack, come on. I said, for what? So I can sit down and hear non-Nubian people talk about what's going on in the Nubian community? I'm the expert when it comes to blacks in the engineering and getting my children in it. So now I'm going to sit there and I'm going to listen to a panel of people who don't look like me talk about what's wrong with my community. And show us God made green apples, that's what I was witnessing. Oh, I sat there and I listened to them. What did they say? Well, the reason that we can't get minority children is because we can't get their parents involved. Oh, really? Then look at all them parents in San Diego. Huh? Look at that. You ain't never seen that before? Principals talk about they want to see that at a PTA meeting. Them all black parents talking about they want to go to San Diego. You want to see children? Look at that. That's an engineering camp, family. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to let you digest it because you don't quite understand. You don't believe your lying eyes, do you? Huh? You thought I was lucky. That's D.C. That's a parent orientation on a Saturday morning. That's an engineering camp. I know it's in a sports arena, but then, look, when have you ever seen that many black children at a sports camp, let alone an engineering camp? Huh? 700 black kids in D.C. Look at that. You know what that is? I'm going all around the country to help black children get in engineering. I said, well, let me take my skills set to my hometown, Jackson, Mississippi. At that black church, my mama goes to that church. My mama said, Carl, I ain't never seen that many folks in the sanctuary. Huh? And you know what we were doing in Jackson? We was doing what in the history of this great nation, and this is a great nation, the greatest nation in the history of mankind. In this great nation, we did what had never been done before. We had 360 little black girls being taught engineering, all by African-American sisters, all of them. You understand? Look at that. That's what it looks like, family. That's what it looks like. 360. Now, let me put that in perspective to you. There's 330 A-Bet accredited engineering schools in this country. 330. Of the 330 A-Bet accredited engineering schools in this country, they only produce just a little over 900 black women getting an undergraduate degree in engineering. And in Mississippi, I had 360 little black girls in the pipeline. That ain't including what you saw all over the country. Right here in New Orleans, we had over 300 little black kids in engineering. In 10 cities, 11 cities across this nation. Oh, and this organization I was with, oh, they was happy. Oh, look at what we was doing. Look at what we was doing. I said, why you patting yourself on the back? That ain't my vision. You happy that you got 3,000. I'm trying to get 100,000 in this country. 100,000. So you think I'm concerned about 1,000 that you're trying to get? No excuses, family. I accept no excuses from you. It's 1,000, a mere 1,000. I want you to imagine, just like you see that, imagine that this organization, what is the one subject in our community that scares us all? What is it? Math. What are you? You're math experts. You trying to tell me that you ain't got the wherewithal to go inside our community and create that kind of interest? Shit. I lost your damn mind. You done lost your damn mind. You done lost your mind. Family, I'm talking about getting at it. Brother Robert said we at war. Less than 50% of our children are graduating. You think that I'm going to stand before you on my last speech ever? This is it. This is my swan song. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. I don't care whose feelings are hurt. When you go inside my community and look at K-12 education and see the carnage that's going on with my children, I'm not supposed to stand before you and give some eloquent speech and hope that I use the right language that makes you feel good. I want you uncomfortable. I want you just like Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth said. Sojourner Truth said, she was out there, and this man got to fussing. Oh, Mr. Journey, every time I turn around, you're talking about slavery. You're talking about abolition. You make me so uncomfortable. She said, then I hope I'm like a flea, and I just stay at you, and you just scratch, 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 scratch. I want you to scratch every day of your life until we can solve this problem. Because this problem is ours, family. If math is the biggest issue, and you are the quintessential black math experts in this country, I expect, Brother Roberts expects, Sister Linda, you expect that we are at the forefront of solving that problem. That is what Mission Impossible possible means. So, let me tell you one thing that we got to be willing to do. We got to be willing to change. See, that word hurts people. No, I don't care what nobody say, I ain't never gonna change. You show me somebody who ain't gonna change, and I'll show you a worthless piece of life. I don't know anything in life that has not changed. I can remember the key inflection points in my life. Jackson, Mississippi, I'm right next door to you. My father was alcoholic. My mother raised 3 boys. My brothers were bug and goldfish. Damn Skippy, baby. Bug and goldfish, so you know where I came from. We didn't go to prep schools with names like Bug and Goldfish. Huh? But I can remember those inflection points. All of them were key to me. See, my daddy drinking, coming home wanting to fight my mother, that was a key inflection point for me because it taught me how to respect black women. Sisters, you're our queens, baby. And you're the queens. Right? My brother Bug and Goldfish, I love him to death. I love Bug and Goldfish to death, and God bless Goldfish's soul because he's gone. Bug and Goldfish were inflection points for me. I watched them brothers break my mother's heart every time we brought home report cards. And my mother, as a poor single black woman, the report cards, that was her payday. And them boys brought her home less than minimum wage. But she was always sitting there telling me, but wait till Carl come in. I was like, Mama, here come Big Daddy, here come Big Daddy. I'm bringing you always. But they were inflection points to me. They were inflection points to me. I remember an inflection point in my English class, in Miss Yarborough's class. You used to sit right there in the very back. See the brother with the bow tie? Raise your hand. I used to sit right there where he's sitting. I'll never forget this day, man, when Daryl Jones walked in that classroom. Daryl Jones was a guy he was 7 years my senior. He walked in, African-American brother. He had his dress white uniform on because he was a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and all the sisters was like, damn, he's fine. And I was sitting right where he going, damn, he's fine. And it wasn't because of my sexual persuasion for him. I had never seen a young, positive black man like that ever in my life before. And I was in love with him, and I didn't want him to understand. I didn't want him to walk out that room not knowing I was in love with him. My mother told me, if you want to run with good people, you will learn good things. You want to run with dogs, you're going to get fleas. That's what she told me. So I remember Daryl and I went to play tennis because his father was my tennis coach. And Daryl asked me this question. He said, Carl, what are you going to do when you leave Lanier High School? I gave him an all too familiar one-word answer. I don't know. Daryl looked at me. Daryl looked at me and said, well, I can tell you right now, brother, you're going to be a failure. It broke my heart, man. I'm loving on you, man. You're my role model. You just looked at me and told me I'm going to be a failure. I said, Daryl, what do you mean I'm going to be a failure? He said, Carl, either you have a plan for success or you automatically have a plan for failure. At that point, it was an inflection point. I began to change. I remember when Mike Matthews came to my community. My community was straight hood. Right down the street from my house were railroad tracks. Now all of a sudden, I'm going to Mississippi State to be an engineer. I know nothing about engineering. I'm thinking I'm going to Mississippi State to learn how to drive trains. That's how little I knew. I wasn't embarrassed about it, but this white man came from Mississippi State to come down to my all-black high school, and he introduced me to the co-op program. He said, you can come to Mississippi State and go work as an engineer, and you'll learn what it's all about. I remember after my freshman year, I was making more money than my mother. At that point, I realized I like John Deere's ethos. Work harder, not smarter. Manual labor was not for this brother no more. That's how I became an engineer. It was an inflection point. Same thing, I remember when Dr. Jones came into my life. It was an inflection point. Dr. Jones taught me who I am as a young African-American man. And understand this, just because I talk about black love, black don't mean I'm anti-anything else. But look at this way. Here you done went to these colleges and universities, you done got all this training. You know all this about all that. But what do you know about who you are as black folks? Who do you know? What do you know about yourself as a woman? Your struggles in this country as a woman. What do you know about your struggles in this country as a person of color. All I can tell you is that with all that education, all you are is an educated fool until you know who you are. Dr. Jones brought that to me. So when somebody sits in front of me and tell me that they're afraid to be a part of the International Association of Black Actuaries because we got black in the name, I pity them. But now it is my responsibility to teach them. So that is the transformation that I as an individual made. But trust me, organizations make transformations too. I remember when the economy was dropping off of a cliff, 2008, I'm looking at CNBC. I'm watching William Ford, the great-grandson of Henry Ford. He's on there, and they said, well, Mr. Ford, what happened to Ford? He said simply, we stopped changing. We stopped paying attention to the environment. Gas prices going up, we're not making vehicles, and our competitors was beating us in every punch, at every punch. All of a sudden, the big three became the little three. Those little three brothers from Asia, all of a sudden, they became the big three, and our automotive industry is sitting in front of Congress asking for a bailout. We needed to change. Remember Blockbuster? Refused to change. Remember when you wanted to go get a movie? How'd you go get the movie? Cold outside, you got to get up, you got to start your car, go down to Blockbuster, got to look through all the movies. Hopefully you can find the movie, get the movie, go look at the movie, make sure you get it back on time, make sure you rewind it. You have to do all that. Blockbuster, brick and mortar, refuse to change, refuse to change. You know the most hated word in Blockbuster is today? Netflix. Why? Because Blockbuster refused to change. Change is a good thing, family. We got to be willing to change. See, when I looked at history, I want you to understand something. I want you to embrace this. If you looked at every, and I like to consider myself a student of history, I always can get better now, don't get me wrong. But when I looked at history, all through history, no matter who I studied, every historical figure that was considered great, they all had one common denominator. One common denominator. I don't care who they were. One. They all had the opportunity to be great. They all had the opportunity. If Lincoln didn't have the opportunity to deal with the moral issue of slavery, he might not have been considered a great president. Susan B. Anthony is considered a great woman in American history. Why? Because she had the opportunity to deal with the discrimination against half the population in this country for no other reason than their sex. She had the opportunity to deal with it. Mary McLeod Bethune is considered a great educator because she had the opportunity to deal with the misfortunes of children in this country who were refused education for no other reason than the color of their skin, and with nothing in her pocket except $1.50. Not 50 cents, but $1.50. With nothing but $1.50, that sister opened up an institution that today stands as its legacy of having educated hundreds of thousands of black children called Bethune-Cookman College. Cesar Chavez is considered a great leader because he had the opportunity to deal with the discrimination and what was taking place against Hispanic and Latino workers. And today, United Farm Workers Association stands as a part of his legacy. Chief Leschi, born of a Nisqually father and a Yakima mother, he is considered a great chief because he had the opportunity to deal with the protesting a treaty in what is now the state of Washington. When his people lived there, they were on fertile lands located right by a river so that they can go inside that river and fish. And then when this treaty came along, they wanted to push them on very rocky soils, take them away from water. He said, look, family, I don't want to go to war with you, America, but you done forced my hand. So he went to war with America. They caught him, tried him, and convicted him. Killed him. But in 2004, history said there was a wrong that was done to Chief Leschi. And in 2004, they righted that wrong and realized that they had killed an innocent man. King. King is considered a great man. We should have clapped for every one of them people. But I want you to something. King is considered a great man because he had the opportunity to deal with the hypocrisy that was going on in the word democracy in this nation. That is why he's considered a great man. Fannie Lou Hamer is considered a great woman. Why? Because she had the opportunity to deal with the issue of voting in our community. And she was so successful that she inspired my mother to take her hard-earned little $2 in Mississippi and pay for a poll tax. Yeah, that's my mama's poll tax. So my mama is a great woman because my mama voted at a time when there was nobody on that ballot in Mississippi that cared anything about us. But because those two women saw a much better day, we can celebrate that today. Greatness, because they understood. And so I'm going to move to my close, family, and I'm going to move to it with this. I don't contend that anything you're going to do is easy. Not one of them. I don't think anything of trying to go from where you are to now getting 1,000 black kids into becoming actuaries. I know it ain't easy, but I want to take you back to that jail. I want to take you back to when they had the handcuffs on the brother. I remember when they put the handcuffs on me, right? And I'm like, I'm down for my people. I'm with my people. Okay, fine, let's go. I remember when they put me in that jail cell. As soon as that jail cell hit, wham! I said, your ass is in jail, man. I said, oh, shit. I said, I was calling for my mama. Look, for the first time in my life, I truly got worried. I had been married for 3 years. Understand me now. Come on, you actuaries, understand this. Run your algorithm on this. I had been married for 3 years. I had a very healthy mortgage. I had a 1-year-old son. I just got arrested protesting my employer. My ass is in jail. You don't think I was scared? Yes, I was. Yes, I was. And at that moment, when I was thinking to myself, Carl, this is one opportunity maybe you shouldn't have took advantage of. At that very moment, history came to me, and this is what it said. I don't want to give you the impression that it's going to be easy. There can be no great social gain without individual pain. Before the victory for brotherhood is won, some will have to get scarred up a bit. Before the victory is won, some more will be thrown into jail. Before the victory is won, some, like Mack may have to face physical death, but if physical death is the price that some must pay to free our children and our brothers from an eternal psychological death, then nothing can be more redemptive. Before the victory is won, some will be misunderstood and called bad names, but we must go on with a determination and with a faith that this problem can be solved. At that point, family, all I want to say to you is this. There is not a mission out there that is impossible. None. This problem can be solved. 1859, the last slave ship in the history of America sailed into Mobile Bay. And you must understand this about the last slave ship. If you look at Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution, it talks about the importation of such persons. It's basically talking about the slave trade. And in Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution, it said that the importation of slaves in this country was to become illegal. It was to stop come the year 1808. But some 50 years later, there sailed a ship up in the Mobile Bay. It had anywhere from 110 to 160 of our ancestors. And some 40, 50 years later, there was a reporter who went because he wanted to understand that last slave precious cargo that landed in this country illegally. And he began to talk about and write about some of the customs that our ancestors had. And one of the customs that our ancestors had is that once a year, we would go to the edge of the river. And the river, when the river was crested and it was a raging river, everybody from the oldest to the youngest lined up at the shore of the river. And everybody had to go in the river. Mothers would take newborn infants, throw them in the river. And if that infant refused to struggle, we would let that child drown. But if that infant struggled, everybody dived in the river. Everybody dived in the river to save that child. All I'm saying to you, IABA, is that our community is struggling. They are asking for you to come out and save them. And it is our responsibility to be like the members of that last slave ship and go and save our community. God bless you all, and I wish you all the very best.